Ah, it's that delightful Sunday again. I think here in the city of Amsterdam, as in terms of the weather, it's glowing up. We are gradually going into more of summer days, and I think it will also be a moment, or let's just say, where a lot of people say that we are nearing the end of, yeah, is it lockdown or however you want to call it? Whatever it is, anyway, we are back on this lovely Sunday, Africa Unfocused, still on lockdown edition. I'm streaming from home for now, but very soon we will be back at the studio, and all of the programs and shows and whatever is going on at the studio will be coming on full force. And it's a bit after 8 p.m. and you are listening to Ms.aba, Africa Unfocused. We're coming to you live to talk some more about what's going on in our world, in Africa, and all of that, and so much more. Plus, we have a very special guest with us today, and is an awesome, multi-talented lady who comes from the African continent and who has so much of creative experience, corporate experience, that could really boost a lot of us Africans that are listening from wherever we are. So if you are listening from wherever in the world, please make sure that you give us a shout out, say hi, comment on our comment box. If you are listening to us from on our Facebook page, reshare it on your timeline. Let the world know that Africa Unfocused is taking place this week. I have so many interesting guests lined up, but we're not going to talk about that. I am first letting my co-host Johnny join me in, and I think he's still figuring out with his how he's gonna put up his telephone. Are you okay, Johnny? Have you found the right angle?
Yeah, sort of. I just have to stick. Hi, how are you?
This, I'm good. I'm good. This is probably like your studio setup, right? Because I even see a keyboard from in the background and all
Oh,
of
it looks
that.
that looks like it, but
It's
it's just a
not.
laptop and a computer. No, it's all right. How is this? I think like it's like
Yeah,
my phone is a bit tilt or not.
yeah, it is, but
It is. Oh.
it's we can see you. I think that's not a bottom line, because from my experience, like when you're like live and you're doing something that you just make that wrong move, and then all of a sudden your phone is
Oh yeah,
on the
like
floor.
everything is gone.
It's disastrous. So how was your Sunday? How is it going?
Now quiet. My Sundays are always calm, always calm. So
Right.
thank God for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, haven't done much so far, but yeah.
Yeah.
How's your Sunday? How's your week?
hmm it was quite hectic. But I got through. I think that's the bottom line. And yeah, I would say that I am part of the people that have to learn how to make time to kind of relax. You know what I mean?
Mm, mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, if you have any advice, that would be great.
Just relax. No, just fly, just travel. And for people like this who find it hard to make time to relax,
hmm
you just have to get them on the plane and like bye, just go, just go
Right.
somewhere else. Yeah,
Is,
that's the
is
thing.
is that what it is?
Yeah, yeah, honestly, because it's location or environment, physical
Mm-hmm.
environment determines most of the time how willing you are to do something.
Mm-hmm.
For example,
Mm-hmm.
there are those who can only work when they are actually in school or in the library
Right.
or in a in a study hall.
Mm-hmm.
And there are those who actually can focus, concentrate, or be
Mm-hmm.
productive when they are at home.
Right.
Um, but there is another thing, which is as long as you are like in your surroundings, like in your familiar surroundings, you
Hmm.
feel like you have to keep working. You feel like there's so much to do and all those things. So for
Right.
those people, it's literally you have to place them in a new surrounding, like in a totally new environment where they know
Yeah.
nothing. They just have to figure out, oh, where can I find some food? Like for them, it's like a super distraction and like totally like the new thing. And for them, they just get excited to figure things out. Like, hey, where am I? Okay, what's there to
Yeah.
do? But it's non work related, so that is refreshing, right?
Right.
So there are no
Yeah.
accountabilities, no responsibilities. They still get busy, active, because that's just who they are. They
Yeah.
like to work or they like to do
Hmm.
stuff. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
just like there's no stress and there is no added pressure on it. So yeah, I would say
Hmm.
as soon as the borders open, someone should
Yeah.
get you on a flight
Just
or a plane
escape.
and then just escape for a week or two. Yeah,
I think I will try that. I have a
yeah.
list of
I'm
things that I should be trying out.
Ooh,
So
another good thing is actually they have this. It's a surprise me booking that you can
mhm,
do. So like you book it online, surpriseme.com, I believe, and then you just pay an amount and
mhm,
you have, let's say, preference of cities. If you want to go by bus or you want to do touring. And
right.
so on the day of your departure, that's when you get
Mhm,
to know where you're going and
mhm,
where you're going to stay and all the other details if there are any trips or
right.
excursions booked or whatnot. So
Mhm.
that's like a real surprise. So you can book that, have it set, like have the day set, keep those days free, and then you find out on the day what the planning is going to be. I'm willing to do that one too. Like I have it on my head.
That sounds adventurous. It really sounds adventurous. It does. It does.
It
I
is
will
actually.
try that one. I will try that one. I think I should make it an action plan, or else I will probably never get to it. And
Mhm.
start learning how to catch a break, I guess.
I think you need a friend or family member who just is going to ring at your doorbell. Let's go right now.
I know,
Like
right?
and then you have to go. Otherwise, you probably won't go.
I know, I know. And I think okay, getting a friend on board and just escape into a new location. I think once I get that on I think it would be more smooth for me to take that step. I think.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I,
Uh
I think I need a word with one of your friends to plan it as well because
I will link you up. Absolutely. Speaking of change, scheduling, a getaway, I'm really excited, to be talking to our next guest. Is actually somebody that I had hoped to have some extra time with once we met her at the Ghanaian Dream last December,
yeah.
because
Hmm.
there is where it was Terry Ephraim's event. The Ghanaian Dream focused to kind of excite everybody, to come on
Yeah.
and return to GH and really touch on, what Africa has to offer. And one of the panel members was a fabulous
Yeah.
lady, coming on all fashionable. And
Hmm.
she really gave a good, fresh perspective on how it is to work on a continent, work here, and also, in between, you know.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
I took it upon myself. I was like, you know what, I need to invite her to come and talk to us on the show and really get more into, what she has to bring. She wears so many hats. She does so many things in her professional work that I was like, you know what, I need to get her on board. And in like a few minutes, I see that she just logged in. I will get her
Mhm.
to join in the conversation. In between, I really want to give a shout out to our listeners. Mensa, Gary Mensa, thank you so much for tuning in. This time I have a bottle of water, especially for you. Normally I have my glass of water. Since he asked why I always drink water, and it's really well needed. And Donnie can speak of that as well. How water is, I remember looking at the last week interview and your big bottle, man. You had it on
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
right next to you to sip on. But that's good.
Mhm.
So shout out to Gary, and for all the rest of you who are listening, spread the word and share it on your timeline, so that without further ado, I might invite our special guest who I have here on the show with me. And for those of you who don't know, we are going to talk about really connecting your creative to your corporate journey, and also not just what it's like, but really the whole experience of working for the continent, in between the continent, making a change for Africa. Because I think that this lockdown series is really taking it on there, whether it be Pan-African movement or, anything of that. And she is a multi-talent, a film producer and people development business partner at Uber, and having an inspiring record of helping large corporations strategize. She also holds a creative portfolio in film production. And she is going to join us now as we talk with our super creative on what it takes to build your career journey strategically and creatively, and also finding out what she's doing on wherever you are in this virtual world. Give me a round of applause for Busi Sizani. Busi, how are you doing?
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, hello, hello,
I
hello.
look a mess. Actually, that's what I just realized. It's
The head wrap makes it all, it puts it all together and
it's
lets it all make sense. So not so
it's
much to worry.
it's wash day. You know how it is.
I
It's wash
love it.
day. So this is what's
I love
happening.
it.
I'm coming authentically me today and very
Yeah.
excited to be with you
Yeah.
all. Hi,
Yeah.
Donnie. Hi, Augusta.
How are
Hello.
you doing? Thanks so much for making up some time. I know that you have your schedule, your tight schedule today, but it's we're really pleased to have you joining in the conversation. How is your
Yeah.
Sunday today?
I've I'm actually studying at the moment, so I spent my Sunday pretty much cooking and studying. And then I
Oh wow.
went for a little walk just to get some air and sun, and now I'm back with you. So, you know,
Awesome. Awesome. And it seems that the weather
always a
is
busy day.
yeah. And it seems that the weather is getting back on its, on its happy and warm position. So I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, very happy with that. As an African living in the Netherlands,
Oh,
a sunny day is always welcome.
absolutely. Super. So Boozy, I had to get you on this show because we met before, at the Ghanaian Dream, where
Mhm.
the time was so short and you shared just so much information on you being this, I call it being a global African, and your work experience, and not just letting your story be focused on just working at a particular company, but doing so much more. And I really love that. So we're going to talk about that in a bit. I know you as a lady of many trades, but for anybody out there who might not know you yet, how would you best describe Busi Sizani?
It's a very interesting question because I always sort of define myself differently depending on the context that I'm in and the target
Right.
audience that I have, because I have, I'm like a serial innovator, serial creative, serial entrepreneur. I've lived many lives and I have tried many things.
Yeah.
Hopefully, so that other people don't have to. I can share the lessons, and then they don't have to bump their heads where I bumped my head. But I really, I think that the main thing about me is really, I have sort of this fierce focus on creating diverse and inclusive workspaces.
Mhm.
This has been my world for the last 5 years. At Uber, really focusing on people development. And even when I look back at sort of my creative journey, right, as a marketer, as a film producer, as
Yeah.
a director, as anything I've always been that one thing, which is
Yeah.
advocating for inclusion in every space that I'm in. So if you want to give me a definition, that would be the one that I think best suits me and has suited me throughout my career.
Yeah. I love that. It really What that tells me is that no matter where you are in the world, no matter where they would position you, that mission would always come together as to that which you explained. Just simple, and whether that
Excellent
be
word
in film.
choice as well. Mission.
Your
It
mission,
is
yeah,
for me. It's a mission. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
And how is it, how is it for you to be able to define that? Because a lot of people still, even in whatever position that they have, find it
Yeah.
difficult. When
Yes.
did it happen for you in your journey?
Yeah. It's very interesting that I think I shared my story this week doing a talk for women who code in Bulgaria. And as I was going through that process of sort of defining what my talk was going to be about, I was focusing on authenticity and inclusion. I realized that for me, the spark happened very early on,
Mhm.
very much as a young person, even in the spaces that I occupied as a young Black girl in South Africa. My social context almost defined this duty and this mission for me.
Yeah.
Whether it was in school, I was always sort of the only or one of few
Mhm.
something. People
Right.
of color, women, whatever
Yeah.
definition, right? I was always very much in the minority, and I found that
Yeah.
unacceptable, just as a general sort of starting point. But I do think very much in my broadcast career as a sports broadcaster, that's when really it's magnified for me. I was in an all-male environment. And I was producer for live broadcasts in sports, so an all
Yeah.
male world, essentially, right? Sports, broadcast, live
I
broadcast
know.
at that, right?
Yeah.
And every day was an experience for me. Like little things were magnified. There were no female toilets where I worked, right? Like in the space, just that basic thing, right? Because it just never occurred to them that a female might ever occupy that space.
Yeah.
So, there was never a need for a female bathroom to exist.
Yeah.
And I think that's the world. When I worked in cricket as a sports broadcaster and live broadcast producer, that's when it really became clear to me that it had to be intentional. It had to be something that I walk in the door and I say, this is who I am, this is what I do, and I won't
Yeah.
accept anything less. That's the standard that I set for myself in whatever environment that I'm in. And that was very, very interesting because I had to co-opt male, mostly white allies to make that happen. And
Mhm.
I think that would be the place where it all began for me,
Yeah.
in a very real professional setting, outside of school, being a rebel in high school, or challenging the status quo in university. In a professional sense, I really became a diversity and inclusion ally, and I like to think professional, really, in that world, because I learned the language. I understood what it is that I needed to ask for, advocate
Mhm.
for, and create, so that the next female that comes into that space didn't have to face the same challenges that I did.
Mhm. Love that. And so where was this? Because we
Yes.
hear of the minority everywhere you go. People are probably wondering, like, okay, where in the
Where's you
world did this,
from?
this take place? Yeah.
Yeah, so that's probably a good way to. I try to define myself in many different ways, like I said before, but I am a South African, and that's a very unique place to grow up.
Yeah.
I'm also not a born free, right? So in South Africa, there's a generation of people we call the born frees. So these are people that were
Okay.
born after 1991, after the country is in legally racially equal. Um,
Mhm.
and so I was born in the 80s. So I kind of had the experience of living in a world that didn't have space for me, really, didn't really care for me in certain spaces. And I
Yeah.
had the experience of being in a world that embraced my diversity, embraced my perspectives and my opinions. So I lived in South Africa for most of my life. And I started working in cricket broadcast while I was still in university. I was
Mhm.
working actually as a presenter of a basketball show at first, which is, yeah, like everyone who knows me laughs at this because they all know I have two left feet. I've never been good at sport, but there I was, right, presenting a sports TV show. And so I kind of got introduced to the world of broadcast that way, and started working there. And this is sort of, a good 14, 15 years ago now. And sort of in that world, that's when in South Africa, and I mean, if you know anything about South African history, you know that we were one of the last countries to actually have racial equality in the world, right? And so this is the space that I was growing up in and becoming in.
Yeah, that is it's kind of isn't it some way, because you mentioned that broadcasting for cricket and then from basketball it was predominantly white. I'm just wondering, does it feel the same as it would be here, you living here now in Amsterdam?
Yeah. It's actually very interesting because I had expectations. I'm a South African. We learn about Jan van Riebeeck very early on. And I had an expectation about what living in the Netherlands would be. I had traveled to Amsterdam, as sort of in my little late teens, early 20s. Just came in and out, my sister and I, in and out, partied, never really had the experience. And what was very interesting for me living in Amsterdam was that I expected a lot more diversity, just kind of walking the streets. And when I got here, I just didn't see that, right? Even though my world is very much in that tech bubble. And these are companies, these are multinational companies that hire people from all over the world. And so you experience a level of diversity there. But as a Black South African, you're used to a Black world. And so what you mean by diversity is lots of Black people around. It's not enough to have other types of diversity. You expect brothers.
Absolutely.
Right? And I just wasn't seeing that in my day-to-day experience until I had to get my hair done. And then
where in Amsterdam?
Yeah. I ended up in Diemen. Somebody told me there was somebody there who could handle the snap. I was like, okay, let me go check it out, right? And it felt like stepping into a totally different type of world, because it felt more like the type of diversity I was used to growing up. I saw people that looked like me. The music I was seeing was different. The type of shops that were around were different from what I was experiencing living in the center or in the ring in Amsterdam, right? So it's different, but it's similar, because in South Africa, it's very much like that, right? That in the center of the city is this special sort of privileged group of people who happen to not look like us for the most part, even in South Africa. And then in the fringes of the city, you find people that look like me. And that was sad to see, but it kind of gave me a little bit more of a connection to home. I won't lie, in the first couple of weeks I was here.
Right. And did the hair appointment turn out? How did it go?
It was very bad. It was very bad. I'm also learning about the diversity of Black, right? Which is very interesting. That my special kind of kink isn't necessarily the specialty. So I have to travel to Paris now to do my hair, to go to the Congolese. It's crazy, right? I have to go to the Congolese there to get my hair together. Otherwise, I have to do it at home.
I can't even imagine.
I can hook you up.
Thank you, Donnie. I would appreciate that.
Oh yeah. Well, you went to Diemen. Well, Diemen is not the place for that's not where black people are. Like nappy
A friend of a friend told me to go there, and I was like, okay, cool. You see, we need a little Black book for these things.
We have
Look
to
at
take
that.
you to Krijnes, Ganzenhoef, Holendrecht. Oh, we will take you to places to get that hair fixed.
Thank you.
That's, by the way, that's a good business opportunity, right? You have this Black book for anybody traveling, where you could find, what else do we need? Is it hair appointments, food, some of our spices, right?
Spices. Oh, my mom has to send them to me because I'm like, the food is bland. I'm dying out here.
Oh,
And what about your ingredients? Other than spices, do you still find like similar ingredients like in South Africa?
Mm, I found a good butcher now, so who cuts all the cuts of meat, not just the premium cuts. Because I need
Right.
the stuff on the inside. You know how it goes.
Yeah, yeah,
I need the hooves. I need the cheeks. I need the stuff on the inside.
yeah.
I
Proper
found a good
African.
butcher, and
Right.
that's been really great. And then, to be honest, I travel so much for work. I'm in London a lot. I'm back home in South Africa a lot, so I often bring things back.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. So you kind of know where to go, and then you bring your appetite from home, and then you take on the things that you can get here in the environment to create that.
Yeah, it's Augustine. It's been actually a very interesting experience because I've been traveling a long time. I've been to tons of countries, like I'm almost at 100 countries, right?
Mhm,
But that's just travel for
mhm.
vacation purposes or for leisure, maybe a little business trip. This is
Yeah.
the very first time I'm actually an immigrant. I'm actually
Mhm.
living abroad. This is the first time in my life, just in the last 3 years. So it's very different from going to a place for 2 weeks. You can do without your spices or without your good conditioner for 2, 3 weeks or even 3 months.
Sure.
But when you're now like settling in and setting roots, you're like, wait,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
need to have my chili now. I need my real
Exactly.
proper oils now.
mm.
Exactly. Well, in the meantime, for those of you who just tuned in, I have a lot of people that are tuning in from all of our pages. John Royal, the producer, the CEO of High Radio, thank you for also joining in and sharing our talk with Busi Sizani. I always get like this warm feel, as in like Busi Sizani. Haven't you heard like that's like a good brand name?
Mm.
It's so strange because my first name is Abu Sisi wa Mandomazana Semakwekhe.
Oh, wow.
And so for
That's your
many
first
years,
name.
that's my first name. I'm closer. We
Yeah.
have we're big on names and the naming
What's
ceremony, and it's very important.
so?
Yeah.
What's the meaning of the name?
So,
Sounds like a
so it's
sentence.
kind of it's a story, right? It's a
Oh,
story, and so my
right.
name means blessed are the girls or the women of the Kwecha clan,
Mm-hmm.
and for this edition, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and the important thing about that is that I'm the firstborn daughter in my family, and amongst
Right.
the closer people, the firstborn girl, it
Mm-hmm.
holds the highest regard, right?
Mm-hmm.
Literally, the word given to them is mafungwashe, which means the one you swear by. It's the
Right.
person that who holds the family together. And so when a girl is born,
Mm-hmm.
my culture is very matriarchal. When a girl is born, your firstborn girl, as a father, that's your pride and joy.
Right.
As a mother, this is it, right? This is the
Mm-hmm.
mother. So it's a very big meaning, and my grandmothers were involved in naming me,
Yeah.
and it felt like a major compromise to cut that name down to just 4 letters, so that
Yeah,
it
yeah,
could be
yeah.
more accessible to more people. And
Right,
so,
right, right.
throughout my high school career, I really didn't like it. I didn't like being called Busi. It
Yeah.
felt like I was cheating. It felt like I was giving something up.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it has probably been only in the last maybe 10, 15 years I've been like, oh, okay, we can go with this. Busi Sizani. Cool.
Yeah. And what about your last name? Has that also been, let's say, fine-tuned in that sense?
No,
Hmm.
no, my last name Sizani. We are very, very niche surname. So if I meet another Sizani, I know we're related. Like
All
100%.
right.
Like we have to be related because there's
Right.
very few Sizanis in the world. So
Okay.
yeah.
Right. I
Man, that's
love that.
interesting.
Yeah. Mensagari is also saying that interesting meaning. And that's also what I love about I know Africa is not a country. It doesn't go for every African nation. But what we do have is that, you know, we do things, even when naming things, we do it with meaning. It carries something, it carries weight. And yours just carries weight. It has a whole story to it. It has this, you know, it carries substance.
Culture.
Yeah, culture, and it's
That is
so
culture.
rich. Absolutely. Now I would need time on learning the whole name, but I really love how you also felt that, you know, shortening it wasn't really your thing. You know what I mean? How was it, where was it shortened for? Was it to fit the corporate world? How did that happen?
So I went to a high school, which was actually a primary school, which was all white. I was one
Yeah.
of two black people in the entire primary school,
In
and
South
of course,
Africa.
in South Africa.
Wow.
And so they took the two blacks and they put them in two separate classes.
Hmm.
So we wouldn't cause a riot or something crazy while we were
Oh,
9 years old. But okay,
wow.
right?
That's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot. So, you know, as I was saying, like I lived through these two worlds. I would never go as far as to say that I lived the experience of my parents' generation, right, in apartheid South Africa, where they lived, it's a lived experience to be in a racially segregated world. But
Right.
I was like awakening, my consciousness was awakening in a world that was trying to transition out of racial inequality to you know, to racial acceptance, to quote unquote the rainbow nation. And
Yeah.
so I was one of those first groups of people of color to go into these traditionally all white schools. And so that was pretty much the first time. And my name got cut from Abusisiwa Mandombazana Semakwegeni to Busisiwe,
Hmm.
which was like, you know, my dad like lamented that. He's like, why? Right? Why? Uh, Probably less so than me, because on a day-to-day basis, people weren't saying all 33 letters of that beautiful symphony. That I was being called Musisiwa on a day-to-day basis, right? At home. So for me, it didn't seem like a big deal. I think Musi came about a little bit later on, sort of high school into early university. And it was because the W in my name, the Musisi, where it has a W-E at the end, was being pronounced as a V sound, which is very Dutch or Afrikaans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, why would you do that? Like, you've heard me say my name. Like, why would you do that? And so it was kind of this back and forth tension. And I think that I finally embraced it when people I actually liked and loved and cared about, like friends, would call me Busi. I was like, and Busi also has a meaning in Xhosa. It means honey. So it was like this sweet thing. So it started to kind of start to feel a bit more like home,
Hmm.
probably in sort of last year or two of high school into early university.
Right.
And then I started to embrace it then.
Oh,
So
okay.
on your passport, does it also say Busi or does it still say the whole name, full name?
Hmm.
No, so passports, IDs, everything. Because in South Africa, when you write your final high school exams, you have
Hmm.
to have an ID to do that. So when I
Hmm.
made my ID, I made it with the name Busi Siwe. So sort of
Busi.
the
Okay.
second, the shortening. So everything is just Busi Siwe.
Right. That is a really surprising and interesting story of your name. Speaking of stories, you're also a film producer. How did that come up? Because you have done incredible work. You have a film that's out there, renowned, awarded, showcased on international platforms. How did that came up, and how do you even do it with your current job at Uber? So
Yeah.
many things.
So I made the film Ayanda as it was for me. I told you earlier on that I kind of have many lives that I like, and it's for me, it's very normal, but I've
Hmm.
understood over the years that this kind of constant reinvention is not something that a lot of people embrace, but that's me.
Yeah.
And so I had been broadcast and production for a number of years, about sort of 9 years. And I wanted to pivot into a more corporate space.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to mark that moment, if that makes sense. Like the transition for me was like an important time, an important moment for me, making a choice to move out of broadcast production into another world. And of course, when you're in broadcast, whether you are a runner or you are a producer or you're a director, the pinnacle of the production world is film. Right. And I had worked in sort of magazine shows, edutainment, documentaries. I had done, a lot of different genres of broadcast, but never film.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to make sure that at some, I was like, well, I'll know this is the end of this era when I make a film. That will cap it for me and end it for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that point, I had just finished doing the 2010 FIFA World Cup. I was one of the producers. It was an amazing experience, really the pinnacle. Like I literally said to my manager at the time, are we going to do the Olympics? Because if we're not, then I need to move on because it doesn't get bigger, right? Than FIFA World
South
Cup.
Africa, right?
Yeah.
This was in South Africa in 2010, exactly.
In 2010.
I decided to move away. So at that point, he was like, well, there's no prospect of us doing the Olympics. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to head out and start my own thing. And I really want to focus on bringing my experience and knowledge of having been in broadcast and branded content, having worked with every brand you can imagine, obviously FIFA World Cup, you can imagine some of the biggest brands in the world, and convincing them to commercially invest in our content. I was like, I know how to do this. I want to run a business that helps young filmmakers, independent filmmakers that don't have the backing of a massive commercial engine to actually get content made through the backing of the brand. So I'm going to help them get money to make whatever content they want to make.
Yeah.
I was like, I can raise money. That's what I know how to do. I can do it really well. I have done it so many times for many different types of programs that I had produced.
Yeah.
That's what I'm focused on. And I didn't have film as a particular idea in that moment, but I knew that it was a goal because I was like, when I end this journey, I want to end it with a film. And the very first thing that hit my desk was a film. Very first thing. It was a script called Ayanda, and everything about it resonated with me. It was an all-female story. It really centered around a mother and daughter relationship, lamenting the loss of a father and trying to figure out her space and her perspective in the world. How was she going to live without her father and with her mother who was really struggling to let go of the past? And she was really trying to reinvent herself. And Ayanda was such a beautiful story to me. Like when I read it, I was like, this has to be written by a woman because it had the sensibility of sort of the female perspective. And it was written by Trish Malone. She was female.
Yeah.
The director of the film, Sarah Blecher, female. And they had come to me to help them raise the last R1 million that they needed to make the movie. And I said, I'll do it on one condition. An all-female producing team. And that's what happened. So we made Ayanda, 2 female producers, female director, female writer, female leads in South Africa, which was tough to do, but we made it. And not only did that narrative really resonate with South Africa, it resonated internationally. The person who bought our distribution rights, the very first person, Ava DuVernay. And I was like, okay, we're done. This is great.
Yeah.
We're done. And to me, that really felt like capturing everything that I wanted to do with my production career, everything I wanted to be as a female within production, the impact that I wanted to make. It was encapsulated in that movie. And that's how it came about. And I'm very proud of it.
I can imagine. I'm even proud of it. I wasn't even part of the team, but I'm proud of it.
Yes. Yes, that's exactly the feeling. I wanted it to be a story that people, immediately go. In fact, the girl that we cast for the lead role, she had never done a movie before. And that was one of the only battles I fought creatively. I was like, I need to see a female face no one has seen before. I need a young girl that is new. I want to bring a new thing. I was co-producing with Terry Petto, who was in an Oscar-winning film, and was that female face. And we agreed that this is the impact we wanted to make. And we fought very hard for that because there were famous female actresses that wanted this movie, that could have brought us that clout, right? Because we were unknowns as producers. And they would have brought us that clout. And we're like, we're not interested in clout, we're interested in impact. So we want a fresh face.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're really specific on what you wanted to create with this work, to put together with this film. Yeah. And you persisted and basically made it happen. Not just that, because I know it premiered at the Cannes Marche du Film, and also showed at LA and Italian film festivals, which is amazing. And it's distributed on Netflix by Ava DuVernay that you which you just referred to.
Yeah,
and
it's no longer Netflix, but Ava brought it to Netflix through her company Array now. And Array is just a wonderful production house that she owns. She's one of the few female directors. She directed Salma, an Oscar-nominated film. I mean, she is the business, right? She's who you want to really recognize your work as a storyteller. And the fact that you recognize our story was just amazing. And of course, being at Cannes, being at LA Film Festival, being at Italy Film Festival, and having people react so positively to the story was everything.
I could definitely imagine that. And for those of you who just tuned in, thank you so much for tuning into our lockdown specials, which is here, Africa Unfocused on High Radio. And we're about to enter our last couple of minutes as we're talking to Busi Sizani, that just made some time for us in her busy schedule, because I know she's on her studies, to talk to us about her creative journey, being a global African, working both on the continent, working here in the city of Amsterdam, often traveling, and so forth. So if you want to snip some questions here and there, make sure that you grab your opportunity to ask her some questions before we even round up our conversation. No time is enough just to even pick out what goes into the mind of this creative woman. Shout out to Esther Dankwa, who just joined in, and also Mensa Gary. Thompson Tutu saying, bless you, all back at you. And Mensa Gary is even asking, you know what, he loves your name so much. He says, are there any boy name suggestion for me when I have my firstborn as a boy? What could he give? He's a Ghanaian. And one thing I have noticed is that a lot of us global Africans are really gravitating to South African names. Not South African is too broad to even name, because I know Xhosa is the culture, the tribe that you're from, but you have so many. So what could you recommend for Gary?
That's a really, really, really difficult question. I have no aspirations of having kids, so I have no names in my mind that have been kept, or I just don't. But I do know that it is a process. If I look at my parents and how they've named us, it's really a process of everything you wish for and you dream for your child. And so it's very hard for someone else to tell you what that is, if you know what I mean. But Ghanaian names are really great too, so I don't know.
That I definitely agree. It's the South African names that have this special touch. I don't know what it is, but it's strong, it's warm, it's cultured, and I love it thoroughly, if you ask me. Just before you round up, I just want to know inclusion, because that is something that you strive for. And also Donnie, I would like to know, because I know for Donnie has a thing with African women who are doing their thing. That's Donnie's Donnie's cup of tea. So I know if it's up to him, he would make this combo like so long. Um,
Hmm.
inclusion, you talked about that. What is the meaning of your focus now at Uber in Amsterdam? I know lockdown has kept you from traveling, but what is really now at this point of time your focus and what you're working on as a film producer on one hand, and also working for Uber specifically, focus Black people and women? What is on your to-do list now?
Yeah. So I joined Uber 5 years ago, and it was really sort of post the film. I had kind of ended that chapter. I was really interested in joining a startup. I wanted to be in that sort of entrepreneurial spirit and world.
Yeah.
And so, but I didn't apply for the role. It just kind of, somebody pinged me on LinkedIn and I was like, hey, interested in this? We're from this company called Uber, and we think you could be an interesting add to our marketing team.
Right.
And I was like, oh, marketing, I don't know, like I've kind of left that behind, brand and marketing, but it's a
Yeah.
startup.
Hmm.
It's really interesting. Let me take the call, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I took the call, and what I found really interesting was this mission. And we keep going back to the word that you used, Augustina, which is mission. And they
Yeah.
had this mission around, at the time, it was transportation as reliable as running water, everywhere for everyone. And to me, that was like such a lofty goal. It was such a big vision in a country where running water is not even guaranteed, right? And now you're talking about transportation, you're talking about employment opportunities, you're talking about access, you're talking
Yeah.
about connecting a country because of racial segregation had been segregated and kind of the connections were broken. And it's like you're speaking all these things. This sounds phenomenal, but I don't know if I want to do marketing, but like let's have another conversation.
Yeah.
So when I joined the company, I was really much more attracted to the idea of creating employment opportunities. At that point, South Africa was sitting at 29% unemployment. It was like mind boggling. I had run my own company for 3 years and had created exactly 2 full-time roles in 3 years. And so I knew that I couldn't, or at least in those 3 years, I hadn't been able to really crack this nut of creating sustainable employment opportunities for people.
Yeah.
And so that was really the thing that attracted me. I wasn't really thinking right away about diversity or inclusion. Again, my context is South Africa. It's a 95% Black country.
Yeah.
I had seen specific industries that really needed to transform, but this was a startup. So I didn't expect that they would have those types of issues until I
Yeah.
signed on the dotted line and walked in the door and I was Black employee number 1. That
Mm.
just blew my mind. I was like, how is that a thing? How am I the only Black person here? Like,
Right.
what's going on? We're in South
Yeah.
Africa. We literally are just down the street, like everybody. And to me, that sparked this idea of like, okay, this isn't top of mind for everybody. And when you think that it's going to
Yeah.
happen naturally, and you're not intentional about creating about diversity, and you're not intentional about creating an inclusive environment where diverse talent wants to be, you're
Mm-hmm.
always going to lose the battle. It's always
Yeah.
going to target the most privileged part of the society.
Yeah.
And so I made it my job. It wasn't my job. That's not what I was hired for, but I made it my job literally
Yeah.
from day one. I made it my mission, and I felt a sense of duty around creating both diverse teams. And so I was very clear that how I was going to hire my teams, how I thought about bringing diversity into every space, diverse opinions, diverse ways of thinking. To me, that was very, very important. And so I think like my transition from then from a purely commerce role, because I ended up in a purely commerce role in business development and
Yeah.
sort of partnerships, I infused the lens into everything that I did, right? And that caught the attention of my managers. It's like, so, but why? Why is that important? And so we started this narrative at Uber around the business case for diversity. I started to do a lot more research. As a company, we started to really mature in terms of our perspective around diversity. And what we know now, which has actually been the case for a very long time, but it needed the rigor of academic research and actually case studies being brought to the table. We know that diverse teams outperform homogenous teams every time. So if you want to win, you want to be the best, you want to be a high performing organization, you've got to be diverse. It's not even a question. But in order to retain that diverse talent, which becomes incredibly competitive, right? And every company wants the unfair share of that diverse talent, you've got to create an inclusive environment where every single person has an equal opportunity to thrive and succeed. And so my role was kind of created by a perspective and a belief that came from sort of the environment that I was in, the family I came from. And what I've since realized is that diversity and inclusion is a profession and a thread that has existed for a long time. I just didn't have the words for it. I just didn't know that that's what it was called. I didn't have the role, right? I didn't know the job title that existed, but I had the philosophy and the mindset, and I wanted to make sure that it happened. So that's my job today. I really focus on people development, but really bringing this lens of creating diverse and inclusive teams that are high performing. And it's been the greatest joy. And as part of that, I also am the global co-chair for Black at Uber, where I specifically advocate for the inclusion, the representation, the celebration of Black talent. So I'm also unapologetically about Black, right?
Yeah.
While living
as we should.
Yeah. So
as we should. Ooh, I
hope that
really
explains
love that.
it.
Yes, absolutely. And before we round up, because I have a lot of people in my circle that, end up at companies where they're the only Black or the only African and stuff like that. What is your advice for these ladies specifically, and men, that deal within this company and really want that change? They live for it, they breathe for it. Where should they even start? What should they think about? Is there a do's and don'ts? Is there a principle to it? Could you shortly elaborate on that?
The number one thing that you should make very clear from day one is that it is unacceptable for you to be the only Black. That should be just non-negotiable. I remember very early on, I was in the marketing team, but I was focusing on partnerships. So I was very much front facing, right? I was the person going to Coca-Cola, to MTN, to Vodacom to actually broker business deals for Uber. And so by virtue of me being in that room, I represented the company, right? I represented the brand. And what they thought was that meant the brand was diverse, because they look at me and I'm a sister and I'm part of the society. I'm from the soil, and they're like, oh, okay, this is what it is.
Yeah.
And I was not excited about that. For me, it's not good enough to be the only one. The second thing that started to happen was that I would get on my desk, in my laptop, in my emails every day, could you have a look at this copy? Could you look at this marketing image we're about to send out? Please tell me your thoughts on this. Hey, we're about to send this campaign to our driver partners. Could you have a look over? And what was inadvertently happening was that I was being made the Rosetta Stone of all things Black, right? Like I'm the touch, like check with Busi, and then we've got the Black angle covered.
Okay, I can see.
And there is an actual email record of this where I wrote that email and I said, I am not the Black Rosetta Stone. I'm just not.
Wow.
I don't even represent the vast majority of Black people in South Africa, right? I come from quite a bit of privilege, right? Both my parents are university graduates. I've kind of been exposed, I've traveled, like I don't represent actually the vast majority of Black South Africans who don't have the same access that I do. So please don't look at this and think that you've checked the box, because you have not. You have not. You have to do the work. You have to go there and actually seek out those perspectives.
Yeah.
So I think like by drawing that line and making it very clear that I'm not going to be your one black in the room.
Yeah.
And number two, I am uncomfortable with that role. I'm uncomfortable with it. And because I live in a country that I should not be the only person with this access. That's impossible. In a country that's 95% people of color, how am I the only person in one of the top tech companies in the world? That makes no sense. I'm not the smartest of everybody. I'm not, it for me just breeds the wrong kind of behavior to make that acceptable. I'm special. I'm not that special. You've got to do the way. You cannot be satisfied with just getting one through the door. You've got to, the acceptable space that I want to operate in is I want to work in a company that proportionally represents the community that it serves. That's my standard. And whatever that looks like. So no, I'm not expecting to be in Sweden and be in a boardroom that's 50% Black, because that's not the society that is represented. But I do expect to be in South Africa and walk into a boardroom and it be at the very least 50% Black, right? Because that is the society that we serve. And I think that, so for me, if I were to say any tip, you've got to say that and make that clear, unequivocal as early as you can. Because I think that it is very comfortable for the corporate environment to say, well, we haven't reached racial equity, but we got Busi. We haven't reached gender equity, but we got Sally.
Yeah.
That's a comfortable thing to have this token that lulls the mind and makes the corporate culture comfortable with lack of diversity. So when you don't say it, they think it's okay.
Well, it is different if you are talking about exactly the community. If the community is, let's say, if the corporation is within an African community or Black community, right, then it is justified. But most of the times, this is a corporation that comes from Uber's headquarters. Is it in Europe or in
San Francisco?
San Francisco in the States. Yeah. So I assume
that's not an all-white country either.
It's not an all-white country either. However, the minority groups only add up to 35% of the entire country. And on top of that, let's say Uber, as we've known Uber, speaking from someone who lives in the Netherlands, like the Netherlands is predominantly white. So let's say their headquarters or their main community or their blueprint of servicing or ethics was constructed to serve the, let's say, white community. So within those contexts and in those countries, when looking at diversity or looking for diversity within the organization, it's going to be hard to find that. However, looking at your example, it's I would support it 100%, being that if you have, even though it could be a Chinese company, it could be a Russia company, as long as the office or is in Africa or in Ghana or in Accra, servicing Ghanaian people or Kumasi people or Cape Town people, then we need to see that representation of the community in the office. Otherwise, it would not make sense. Is that correct?
Donnie, and it's this is the part that I missed, right, when I was speaking before. It's not just representation for representation's sake. The business case is important. So here you are a massive brand, Uber. What's your objective coming to South Africa? You have a business objective. You didn't just pick a country, right, out of random. You have a business sort of imperative. You want to make money, right? And to make money, you need to onboard driver partners. You need to build a rider base, right? That was kind of us at the early beginning. Who are those people in the demographic that you're trying to speak to, right? And I speak about race a lot because I'm South African. I know that for Dutch people, it's very sensitive to speak about race, but race is certainly not the only sort of level of diversity that we focus on, even at Uber, right? Gender, race, socioeconomic, caregiver status, your parenting state. There's so many aspects, right, to our diversity. And so what I'm saying is that if you want to market to a group of people, you know, a society, a community, whatever it is, what is your business objective here, right? And if you're trying to talk to them, but you cannot speak their language, you're not going to get very far very quickly. And so what's important is that you need to bring those perspectives into the business decision-making process. And you don't do that by picking the most niche, the most privileged group and bring one of them into the room and then hope that that somehow covers the perspective that you need in order to make better business decisions to sell your product and make yourself some money. And so you've got to link it to a business objective. Right. If I had walked into Uber and said, there's not enough Black people here and I'm uncomfortable, who cares? Right? Like, who cares? My discomfort isn't enough. But what was important was that I was coming in here with a set of experiences, a set of connections, partnerships, relationships, expertise that was born out of not just being in the industry, but my unique perspective and experience in the world that allowed me to be a better marketer for the audience that they wanted to reach. And what I was saying is, I am not enough. We need to make sure we broaden those perspectives because those experiences are as unique and diverse as there are people. And the more we have them in the boardroom, the better. And so you could take that same principle to whatever context. And so race might not always be the lens, but whatever the lens is, whatever the perspective that you need to make better business decisions, you need to have it in the teams. You need to have it in the business.
On that note, we're running out of time.
Yes, and, I know that I had a hard stop, which I've now passed. I'm trying to answer the question. I'll be happy to take it.
And it's the topic as well. I mean, I even see the comment of Cecilia Eben Blake, who's saying, is saying it enough? You are touching on a great topic. Can we do something at HR level? You know, you could really see the urge of it. Just to pick up on that last question of Cecilia, do you think that, you know, from within companies, there is something more that we could do than saying it?
Yeah, I think there is definitely more, but it really depends on your position. It depends on your, like, you can't just walk in and demand. Like, that's just not realistic, right? That's not realistic. Your job when you're walking in is to be excellent. That's your only job, probably for a couple of months. It's to deliver, right, on what the company has brought you on today.
Yeah.
Right? And then when you deliver, right, you start to gain the credibility that you need to speak on more. So deliver on the thing that you're supposed to do, and then you can start to speak on more. And then people will listen to you because it's like, oh, Augustina said it. That's who said it. And we know that her mission is aligned to the business's objective. And so when she says it, you better listen, right? Because she's not going to say things that aren't about our business objectives. So that's important. So first come in and deliver. Be excellent at what you do. Be excellent, not just good, not just okay, not just show up, but be excellent and gain that credibility. And as you move up the ranks, your voice will have more power. You will be able to question and to challenge things. You'll be building your own teams soon and build your teams and bring in the lens. I didn't build a team day one, but eventually when I did build a team, my way of doing it, the perspective that I brought in, my reasoning for diversity in hiring, my challenging of the status quo and the systems. I'm like, why am I getting the same CV 50 times? It's like different names, but I'm getting the same CV. I want to see something different. Because now I'm a hiring manager, but I didn't have that authority before. So take the space that you're in you're not the CEO when you join, unless you own your own company. You're not the CEO, so you're not going to be making big HR moves after your first month. Probably not. So
Right.
that's what's important, I think, is just like really focus in on challenging. Definitely challenge, ask the right questions, but I think first gain your credibility.
Right. Right. On that note, I really believe that you have touched on so many things. What inclusion means, how to bring about that change, and definitely for those in the diaspora who seek to make that difference, the Africans who might not have had that, that experience that you had on the soil, because I think for West African, the experience could be quite different, and for East African as well. But I love how it all comes back to making that change, not just for you, not just being there as the only Black person and just feel like that's okay. I'm accepted, I've made it, and that's it.
Yeah.
And I think that will impact a lot of other stories, as they take the effort to make that change in their company, whether that be an Uber, whether that be a Levi, or whether that be any other major companies where, we Black people are also consumers of. So
Yes,
on that
ma'am.
note, you covered, you touched on so much. Also, what we like to know, where could people find you online? Where could they find Busi Sizani? Could they pick up a bit of your world? Could they find it somewhere?
I'm terribly boring. So I don't know how excited they would be to see me and my partner just traveling and eating. That's
Right.
really all we do.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. That's really the best platform. I try to be very, very interactive there. I'm looking to launch some more content on LinkedIn as well. So just Busi Sizani. You can just, I think I'm like the only one there
Sure.
on LinkedIn. I have a private Instagram account, which
Mhm.
I'm considering maybe I should just make it open.
Maybe you will
No,
revive it.
maybe I'll like rethink it and revive it. But for my Instagram and for my Twitter pages, it's yes, that Busi.
Yes,
Um,
that Boozy.
that Busi. It's a very interesting story around
I will
that.
definitely.
But you can, yeah. So I'm not as active on Twitter as I probably should be, but you can always find me on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping to be like back more active on Instagram once we can travel again.
Oh, a new normal, right? We're all excited to head back to the new normal. Will it be the same? Who knows?
No.
It
I should say
won't.
no.
As a people development professional, this has been an exciting experiment of the future of work. So
Right.
very
Wow.
excited to see how things inevitably change in the work environment after this COVID-19. But I
Yeah.
really hope everybody's staying safe and staying connected throughout this time, and really
Absolutely.
focusing on yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like this is super important
Your growth,
as
your
well.
vision. Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Absolutely. I'm studying right now, you know? Like, hey, when I was gonna get this time? I was never gonna get this time.
I
Quiet
know.
focus. Let me
Yeah.
do a course.
Yeah. Oh
Mm.
my gosh. So thank you so much for inspiring us, Boozy, for taking some time out on your Sunday. We will be following you, on Twitter and on Instagram, and often on touching base on how things are going. So thank you for inspiring people in corporate, people in business as well, and even the creatives as to how to go for and create their story and put things together according to vision and not just according to what everybody wants. And I really believe you laid that out perfectly. So again, thank you, thank you, thank you. And all the
Thank
best with your
you.
studies this evening.
Thank
And
you.
Yeah.
have a good night. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, Augustina. This is a
Stay
wonderful
safe.
platform. I just wanted to say thank you to you for your inspiration.
Thank you.
I know when I met you, I was blown away. And I think that everything that you're doing here is
Mm,
really inspirational. And please don't undermine the impact that you're making
thank
just by
you.
being yourself. You're
Thank you.
really actually showing everybody that it can be done. and that they can also aspire for more. So thank you so much, Donnie. It was wonderful to chat to you as well. Bless you both. I'll speak
Have a
to you
good
soon.
night. Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, that was a most inspiring talk with Busi Sizani from the city of Amsterdam. As you could hear, she's a traveler. She's anywhere around the world. She took some time to talk to us about making that change. And her change really happened at a lot of stages. One of them at a major company like Uber had her or pushed her to the place where she, had to make that change and not just be the only Black girl. Can you just imagine on African soil, you're the only Black girl? But that's
Yeah, I mean that's insane.
yeah, absolutely.
But it's not common though. It's not uncommon.
It's not. It's not. Definitely not.
No.
And I think that I think a lot of our episodes or talk are really going to talk about making that change, not being the only African. How can you connect to other Africans? Pan-African
Yeah.
movement. I don't know if this is if the Lord is telling us something, but we need to do something with that. You get what I mean.
Hmm.
And I think it would be also interesting to touch base that we have an episode like in some weeks and we kind of reflect on our best interview, because we have some interesting ones listed
Yeah.
for the coming period. And it would be really good if we could have an episode to really talk on, what are some of the topics that we should have coming back, for the community. I really believe
Yeah.
so.
But and this is so funny because like COVID-19 first half of 2020, and look at the kind of interviews we actually having in this
I
period
know. I
without
know.
even being at the studio. So that is, I don't know, it's like a blessing in
Yeah,
disguise, or kind of like, yeah, I'm loving it.
absolutely.
I'm loving it.
Absolutely. And it says really much that, stopping is not the first response that you should take
No.
on. You should really kind of look broad. Okay, what are my opportunities? How can I connect? How can
Exactly.
I, do something with the story that I have? So this is good. This is really good.
Mhm.
I know we
Yeah.
didn't have time for a news flash or anything, but are you on to something special this week?
Who, me?
Yeah.
I'll be in the streets, looking for
The
someone
streets.
who can fix Boosie's hair. Like we have to hook her up, like for real.
Yeah,
We,
yeah. No, no, really. All hope is not gone. So I think she
yeah,
was
like
just referred to the
why
wrong person.
Paris?
Oh,
Why Paris?
all the
Yeah, I know,
way.
but all the way. Yeah, no,
All
no,
the
no. We
way.
we have to.
And
I'll go on a search.
listen, that black book is a business opportunity. Somebody should take it. I don't have time for it. No, but really, like if any, just black person coming to live, because The Hague, Amsterdam, now these both cities are really, attractive to travelers. Like people are really settling here for work and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be good for black people, Africans, to just know, like, okay, if I want this and this spices, or something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
we should do something with that, Johnny.
Well, let's look at it. Let's sit at the table.
We should.
Or
So
we can
yeah.
we can sell the idea.
Oh yeah, we should do that. We should do that. But then we would need people to help us create like the what's it called? What's the word for it? It's not pilot. It's
A patent?
yeah,
Is
and
it
the one that
copyright?
the version that you present that's like, well,
Oh, is it the business model
the
or
model, but also the, I don't know.
business
It's
plan?
no, it's equivalent to a pilot, but then for product,
Equivalent to it.
like product apps
Oh,
and stuff. I
um,
we're gonna get to this one.
demo. What is it?
Demo,
Like
exactly.
demo? Okay. Oh,
Exactly. If
prototype.
prototype, demo, something like that. Cecilia saying project plan. Okay, yeah,
Project plan.
exactly.
All of that. All of that.
all of
But
that.
wait, if we are going to do all of that, then we might as well just do the whole thing. and then maybe sell it in a couple of years or not, if
Yeah,
it's really out there.
yeah.
But
And then
anyway, it's
and
good.
as
It's good.
yeah, it's good. And as Africans, we should make the right the right business choices, so that we are the ones that still have the ownership. Didn't we talk about that? That ownership for Africans is really
Ownership
important.
has been an yep.
Absolutely, definitely. So we're rounding up Africa on Focus. I just want to give a shout out to Cecilia, who's saying, "Awesome! Thank you for interacting with us on this show today, and thank you for giving us your time and tuning in on this Sunday evening." Kwame Ananse, I also want to give you a shout out. Who says, "Great topic." And we have more who tuned in. Emmanuel from the city of, was it Birmingham, somewhere UK, for tuning in. Nanekwasi also, thank you for tuning in, everyone. Next week, we will have an interesting speaker. He is a DJ, he's a presenter, and he is, he is very well known. He's a comedian based in London, and he is now, he's causing a riot to urge young people to get on this Pan-African movement and really do something for Africa, but specific task. And he's going to talk to us next week. We will be announcing his name this week, so make sure that you keep an eye on our timeline. Also, shout out to Elton Mujazvivi. Thank you for tuning in. Who said, "Hi, my people. I am hiding away from COVID in motherland Africa, and I hope that you are sipping on a good coconut water as you are on this." Everybody, thanks so much for tuning in. We have to go. Been over time. I should consider the time that we start, but we will talk about that anyway.
All right.
And
Yes.
also to you, Donnie, thanks so much for your time, and have an excellent, fabulous, blessed week.
Thank you. You too.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.